welcome back, or welcome to my channel. I am Bonnie Anahata. If you are new here, I am Bonnie Anahata, also known as the Aligner. I am an art therapy and emotional energy alignment coach, and I'm here to help you navigate your emotional sensitivities and find the power behind them. So yes, how are you? This is my first video of the 2023 calendar year. But of course, I've been in the process of still undergoing this internal winter, transformation period and awareness period and, releasing period before the real new year. Okay. And I hope you're doing the same. And within that, doing that comes a lot of emotions that come up. And now, of course, we navigate the emotions regularly on an everyday basis. And it's important to know this for that as well. But it's extremely important to understand what I'm about to refer to in the grand scheme of moments that really bring up heavy emotions, those triggered moments, those really intense emotional moments, or those moments that bother you. It's very important to find a system in processing through those emotions and not just trying to reach for the enlightenment, the logic in your mind and pushing away your emotions. So it's important, and I want to bring this information to you always. And yeah, let's get to it and talk about it. I do have some things that will assist you in doing so, such as my readings, my emotional energy readings, as well as my Patreon page that is back and has more content to assist you along in this emotional processing journey. So let me ask you something. You know those moments where you're triggered, where you're bothered, even if it's like internally only, where you're emotionally triggered, bothered by something, someone, or whatever. And you might not even give into the trigger, or you might not even give into the emotion, but internally, or whether internally or whether externally, you are having a reaction, right? Those moments that bother you. When you come into contact with those trigger moments, right? When you come into contact with moments where you're bothered, you're just fucking bothered by things, how do you treat yourself? What exactly do you do when you feel that emotion come in? You know, I've heard a few different stories and a few different scenarios as to what people do, right? Because even especially in along this awakening journey, in this conscious journey, most of us on this journey are, most of us, what we're doing when we're bothered a lot of the times, most of us, mainly when we start this journey, not those of us that are along more experienced within the journey, but a lot of us are centering the act of what we do when we're triggered or when we're bothered. We're focusing that in the mind, and we're focusing that instead of paying attention to those emotions and to those triggers. We're invalidating the experience or downplaying the experience with our mind, by suppressing it with our mind, by trying to go straight into a visualization to create an enlightenment or to create a higher vibrational feeling. We're going straight to that, and we're completely invalidating the emotion as if it does not matter, as if it's there erroneously, as if it's there and you don't want no parts of it, right? Most of us are doing that when it comes to emotions. For example, let's say, women, you might be dating somebody and you feeling, it might be somebody new that you're dating, right? And you're feeling a type of way because they didn't text you, or, they didn't call you, or they did something, or they said something that made you feel bothered and that made you feel triggered. Well, many of us, for the sake of trying to be mature, or for the sake of trying not to be irrational, or trying not to be too emotional, will bring our mind in and we'll tell ourselves, girl, you don't even like him like that. Or girl, he wasn't, he wasn't this and all that anyway. Or girl, why do you feel this way? You don't know him like that. Or girl, you should not be feeling this way. Ew, like why? Like, girl, you don't even like, y'all not even date. That's not your boyfriend. That's not, that whole time what you're doing is invalidating that emotion you felt. And the reality is, whether silly, whether it's the truth, whether it's a lie, whether it's a minuscule thing, any emotion that comes up has to be acknowledged. It has to be addressed. It has to be acknowledged and it has to be addressed first. Don't go straight to invalidating it, okay? On this road to enlightenment, we have this expectation that we're not supposed to be bothered. Right? That we won't, that we won't be affected by things. That we're too high to be affected, and we're too high to be bothered. So when we do have times that we're bothered and we're triggered by things, because we have this expectation of being too high and I'm not supposed to be touchable, we shut down that feeling that we're experiencing. And it's like, yeah, I get that you're trying to be high and enlightened, but you can't fake it at the same time. If you're feeling something, it's for a reason. It wants you to acknowledge it. It wants you to address it, okay? And like I said, a lot of time, for the sake of being higher, we're faking it. We're faking patience. We're faking peace. We're faking a non-attachment. We're faking that shit, knowing damn well you felt it. Knowing damn well you felt that feeling and you were bothered. Tell me something. When you're doing that, where do you think that feeling goes? You think that feeling just fucking vanishes? You think that feeling just vanishes and goes away because you visualize? Yes, we can use visualization to help move the energy within us. But you can't manipulate the energy with your mind if you first haven't understood the energy that you're working with. You can't transmute until you understand what energy are you working with. So you need to be able to address, in order to know. You can't know with your mind. You can't know a feeling with your mind. You have to feel it. So when you're feeling bothered, you have to feel it. So it's so important. It's so important to address these feelings in the grand scheme of our emotional processing, right? To address these triggers. Because how you treat yourself when you are triggered will make or break you in the long run, okay? Like, this pushing away of emotions is creating a pattern of not only trapping emotions within you, but it's creating a pattern of telling your body and your internal self that it doesn't matter. You're telling your internal self that it doesn't matter and that your logic is more important. And we know that can't be true, because within our body lies our intuition, right? Within our body lies our spirit. In fact, your logic is not even the most important brain. Your mind this is not even the most important brain. In fact, our body holds two of our most important brains, and that is the gut and the heart. Okay? So you have to tap in and trust into your body in order to fully process the emotions, right? And so when it comes to the trigger coming in and feeling bothered, it's important to keep asking yourself, how am I treating myself when I'm triggered? How you treat yourself in the moment of the trigger is so important. And like I said, it can make or break you in the long run. Because if you're just pushing it down, right? If you're just pushing it down and shoving it away and pushing it to the side, you're shoving an aspect of you down, and in turn, it's a part of you, right? So in turn, you're adding to the subconscious that you don't trust an aspect of yourself, which in turn is saying you don't trust yourself, pretty much, right? Like for me, so like I said, how you process your triggers in the moment can make or break you, right? And so like when I think about there was a point in time for me, even after this was after my awakening journey, right, that I realized I did not trust myself. Like I wasn't trusting myself to make decisions. I wasn't trusting myself to, and as a Libra sun, I can already be indecisive because we see all sides of things. But it was even worse because I wasn't tapping into myself because I had been pushing that part of me away, right? So in turn, I wasn't trusting myself. And so every time I would like feel an intense emotion, I would appoint my mind and my logic as the leader, right? I would appoint my mind and logic as the leader, and I would push down feelings. And in the grand scheme of things, I was being judgy. I was being judgy when those emotions was coming up, when I was feeling bothered. Every time I was feeling bothered or triggered, I was being judgy of those emotions. And I was subconsciously shaming myself for feeling these emotions because I wasn't supposed to feel this way because I'm enlightened. You know what I mean? That's that toxic positivity shit. Like, and so when I release that need for toxic positivity, I had to teach myself not to be so upset or judgy or condescending when I'm bothered. It's like, again, every time I did that, I created new emotions of shame and guilt and disdain for myself. And then here I go creating more emotions, heavy emotions, and then I'm not processing them when they come up. I'm not processing them right or giving them room or giving them space when they come up. But I'm creating the emotions, those intense emotions, by how I'm treating myself in the moment of the trigger. I was creating those, right? And so imagine it like this. It's like a child, a little child. Children are learning. They don't know no better. They lack emotional intelligence. We know that, right? So when a child has a certain emotion, they're fearful, they're scared. Imagine a child being so scared of something. And in your logical mind that they don't have to fear it. But the child doesn't know that, right? The child doesn't know that because the child is still experiencing, okay? So usually, or even if a child is having a temper tantrum or something like that, but if that child is fearful, that's why I don't agree with a lot of people's parenting styles out here, because I'm like, if that child is fearful, regardless of how erroneous, invalid, or silly you think it is, the child emotion is fearful. So you have to nurture that feeling in that child first before you teach the child the lesson. Nurture the child. The child is fucking scared. Like, the child is scared. You need to address the fact that the child is scared. Tell them, nurture them. You're not gonna go to the child and say, that's so stupid. Why would you be scared of that? Like, and I know people that talk to children like that, and that shit ain't cool. Like, and they wonder why we're growing up with so much of a sense of expectations, or trauma, or anxiety, or depression. And so it's like, if that child is fearful, you need to still, regardless of whether your logic, we know that it's, silly to be scared of, but the child is still feeling fear. You need to address that child's fear first by comforting the child, by hearing the child, what the child is scared of, by soothing that child. You have to address the child's emotion first. Because in that moment, you can't teach that child. The child is scared. The child not trying to hear what you got to say because the child is feeling fear. First, you got to talk the child down from the fear. You have to give focus and present moment attention to the child and the fear. And then you go into teach the child, like, this is not something you have to necessarily be afraid of. This is how you can handle that. That's what you do for a child. And furthermore, even when it comes to, like, let's say children having temper tantrums, a child is having a temper tantrum and you are fighting against the child's emotions, they gonna fight back. They gonna fight back when it comes to a temper tantrum. I'm telling you, like, you're fighting. They're already in fight. They're already in fight or flight. And you responding with fight or flight is doing nothing but intensifying the fight. It's intensifying the fight if you're responding with fight. Okay? They fight back. And this is something that happens if you keep doing that to them. They're either going to continuously fight you back, or they're going to eventually realize that you are not a safe space for their emotions. Okay? So let's correlate what I just said to us. And see, we have to remember that when we're coming from our triggers are coming from our subconscious and our shadow, right? And the shadow in the subconscious is run by our child selves. If our triggers are coming from our child selves, then it is the child self that we need to acknowledge and address and nurture in the moment of the trigger, okay? So we have to nurture the child self within when we feel triggered and not fight against it and not ignore it and not push it down. Because in turn, that child self will start not trusting you. So now for me, instead of using my mind to fight against my emotions, to invalidate my emotions, to condescend my emotions, instead now I use my mind to understand them, to create space for them, right? I release the expectation of what and why I'm supposed to feel, and I just feel it and let the feeling come up. Now it is a process of doing that because you don't want to feel and sit in the emotions too long. You don't want to sit in your emotions too long. And that's why it's good to have, somebody to guide you in, practicing and implementing this process of, processing your emotions. Whether that is, a coach, a teacher, a mentor, or whatever. Either way, you need something concrete as far as a system, so you're not in the particular phase of processing your emotions too long, right? Because some of us can get stuck in the feeling, in the feeling phase of it, right? But either way, it's the most important thing is validating your emotions, not condescending them, not invalidating them, not suppressing them for the sake of trying to be enlightened, for the sake of trying to be more patient, or trying to be not bothered or not attached. You have to validate your emotions no matter how silly they may be, because you can then come and validate them. I'm not saying you have to agree with them. I'm not saying validate them by agreeing with them. You validate them by listening to them and hearing them out. And then you utilize your mind to nurture yourself and that part of you, and then to move yourself into the release phase of it, okay? So if you want to start practicing, this work, because it can be work, but it also can be beautiful because it's It's helping you to give room for yourself, understanding for yourself, and process the emotions that we deal with on a daily basis. You have to have a system to the ebb and flow of the day. You know what I mean? You have to have a system to process that. So doing this work can be very beautiful. But if you want to start practicing this work, or learning how to practice this work, I have uploaded some more exclusive worksheets on my Patreon page that I've started back up. Now, if you want to start practicing, there is where you can definitely start. I have 3 tiers. I have 3 tiers that will include access to worksheets, to presentations, to trigger release audio, and to trigger emotional alignment products, and to trigger release readings or emotional trigger readings. So those 3 different tiers, you can have access to a myriad of different tools that will help you learn how to process your emotions, no matter what phase you are in the enlightenment process. No matter what phase you are, you don't have to be, guru level, and it certainly doesn't matter if you're at this, new beginner level. You just have to have a mind to know that I'm ready for change. You have to at least be there at that awareness to know that I'm ready for change. Okay. Again, my name is Bonnie Anahata, also known as the Aligner. And if you kind of don't know where you are with your emotional energy and would like an understanding of where you're at, or what is your emotional energy, what is the emotional energy you give off, or the trapped emotions that you have within, you can also book a emotional energy reading with me today. Okay. So join that Patreon if you're ready for this work. I have 3 tiers ready for you, and come back, and I would love for you to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I will continuously put out content for you here and on Patreon. Thank you for supporting my channel. And I want you to always remember to see your emotional sensitivities as power.